Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Todoroki's Conspiracy. This will be Part 8, Chapters 15 and 16. Chapter 15, Mirio's Musings. When Mirio Tokuda is asked to visit the first-year hero students along with the other two members of the Big Three, he's not really surprised. After all, he can still recall the day when the old Big Three came to teach his class about hero work studies back when he was just a first year. Now it's his turn to explain how things work, with the help of Tamaki and Najiri. Okay, so Mirio doesn't really think he'll get much help from them. Tamaki is still working on his confidence, and Najiri gets so excited and curious around new people that she'll become distracted in moments, but it'll still be fun. Mirio is considering a hands-on approach to show just how important the work studies are. But he'll have to scope out the kids first. And he does exactly that, using Tamaki and Najiri's time at the podium to look over his potential opponents. They look like a strong group, which Mirio would expect. This class has gone through multiple villain attacks after all. It only makes sense that they're gaining something from their experience. Sadly, it looks like quite a few have done more than simply benefit from their encounters. Even in their seats, some of the students seem tense and ready for action. While Mirio would normally praise someone for being ready for anything, this is just saddening. But it's a little odd, if Mirio's being honest, because all of the kids look ready to fight. They're also keeping an eye on the green-haired boy. Midoriya, isn't it? Mirio thinks that sounds about right. He's heard rumors that Aizawa-sensei has taken on a new personal student, one that's already being mentored by All Might himself, and Mirio's best bet is that it's this boy right here. Which means that Midoriya has to be capable enough, right? So why would his peers be so, dare he think it, worried about him? Isn't that the broken arms boy? Najiri wonders out loud as Mirio decides to take over the podium. But I thought he is the boy that was threatened by that one villain who keeps attacking UA. Oh, right. Midoriya is the one who's, at the center of everything, with a quirk that caused him to break his own bones, and yet he's also kept defeating villains time and time again. It makes sense, then, that his peers are so anxious they're afraid that the boy is going to end up finding another foe to face. A valid concern, considering the career path they've all chosen, but hopefully they'll learn that the boy can handle his own. Luckily, he knows how to prove it. Why don't we all fight? Mirio suggests, going with his hands-on idea, and the students look excited at the offer. Let's go, a blonde shouts. 20 on 1, isn't that unfair for you? Another blonde questions. Who cares? I want to see what he can do, a redhead shouts, pounding his fists together. You can fight him, Aizawa starts, looking resigned to the chaos around him. But go change into your PE uniforms first, and meet us in Gym Gamma. You have 10 minutes. Go. And go they do, racing off and out the door within seconds. Mirio watches them go with a laugh, but Tamaki just shivers. I still remember when he did that to us, Tamaki murmurs as Aizawa exits the room, the 3 third years following in his footsteps. Didn't he end up expelling that one girl? Najiri asks. The one who could mess with sunlight, right? Because she took 10 minutes instead of 5. I did. Aizawa cuts in and Mirio laughs as Tamaki squeaks. Having come from 1B, he never had Aizawa-sensei as a homeroom teacher, but Najiri and Tamaki did. This lack of exposure is probably why Mirio is so much more confident than his friends when approaching the man asking, So, isn't Midoriya the boy you're training? Aizawa eyes him, nodding curtly as he speaks. He is. He seems really small, Najiri comments cheerfully, but he has such an adorable smile, almost like a sunbeam. He's like a tiny Mirio, Tamaki murmurs. He's one of my top students, Aizawa informs. Despite that, he's constantly training and pushing himself to be better. Don't underestimate him. Mirio nods, taking the warning with care. Aizawa's many things, but he's not one to give dishonest praise. If Aizawa says Midoriya's good, Mirio will take those words to heart. Tamaki and Najiri understand this too, because they both gape at Aizawa's words, and just like that, Najiri is asking more questions than ever. A compliment already? He must be special. So you train him, but what on? Is he doing well? Ooh, do you have him act like you? Does he get to expel kids, or... He's becoming a hero, not a teacher, Aizawa interrupts. And he's not becoming me, either. I must admit, I'm also curious. What are you teaching, Midoriya-sensei? Mirio prompts, and Aizawa sighs, rubbing at his forehead before speaking. Currently, Midoriya and I are working on improving his stealth. Along with this, I've been teaching him my fighting style so that he doesn't simply run around punching and kicking things. Oh, that's adorable, Najiri coos. I want to see the little green bean running around, but just like you, without the fancy scarf. He's not without the capture weapon. Mirio pauses in his tracks mid-step, his foot hanging awkwardly in the air. Beside him, Nijiri and Tamaki have also frozen. Aizawa continues for a few more steps before finally stopping and glancing back at them. Yes? Aizawa asks, and Mirio shakes his head, snapping himself out of his shock. He isn't without the capture weapon? Mirio reaffirms, and Aizawa lets out a huff of air. No, Midori has an old spare of mine, just like my other personal student. He's only had a few sessions with it, but he's already beginning to get the hang of it. Really? Nijiri asks, eyes wide, and Aizawa rolls his own. Why don't you see for yourself? And Mirio wants to do exactly that. He races ahead of the man, heading to Gym Gamma with pep in his step, and his smile widens as he spots the boy in question already there, a few of his friends by his sides. All right, let's do this, Mirio exclaims. Midori, little man, where's your capture weapon? Midori jumps, eyes widening as he answers. I didn't bring mine, Sensei didn't ask us to bring our gear, so... Just use mine. Aizawa cuts the boy off, already dropping the scarf around his shoulders, and Midori squeaks, face dipping into the fabric, and Mirio sort of wants to take a picture of the moment. Oh well, it's time to fight some kids. When Shoto watches Toga fight his peers, he can't help but keep his eyes on Midori and Midori alone. He's not subtle, he knows this, and Bakugo scoffs in his ear about it, but he knows Bakugo is keeping his attention split between Midoriya, Aizawa, and the entrance so Shoto doesn't think that he can be judged. But the longer Shoto watches, the more his anger grows until he almost wishes that he'd partaken in the fight if only to let off some steam, because the longer Shoto watches the fight, the longer he sees Midori holding his own against the third year, the longer he sees Midoriya trying to use their homeroom teacher's capture weapon to his advantage. And the worst part is, Midori is good with the weapon. He's not at Aizawa's level, of course he isn't, but Midoriya only started his one-on-one weekend lessons with Aizawa a few weeks ago, and Midori hasn't used the capture weapon during their normal classes, because he apparently wasn't allowed without direct supervision and guidance yet, which means that Midori has only had 4 to 6 chances to use the gear, which means Aizawa-sensei has been pushing Midoriya, and pushing him hard because Shinso had complained at lunch about his support gear. How hard it is to wield at times. It took him months to stop himself from getting tangled in it, and even then he still manages to trip himself up from time to time. So, to manage it with less than a week's worth of training sessions, it's impossible. And while Midori is known for breaking the rules of the world and making impossible work for him, it's not the same. So, as Midoriya wields the capture weapon and manages to use it to his advantage, Shoto grits his teeth and tries to refrain from setting the wall on fire. And as Midoriya ends up as the last one standing, Shoto wonders how many more training sessions Aizawa will push on his dearest friend. And as Midori is praised for his skill by the third year, Shoto wonders if Midori will ever have a chance to just relax. Hopefully, the work studies will give his friend a chance to get away from his stress, if only for a few weeks. Chapter 16. Rooftop Revelations. The work studies did not, in fact, give his friend a chance to get away from his stress for a few weeks. No, they only served to make everything worse. Shoto wants to be surprised. He wants to be shocked by this turn of events, really, he truly does. But he's not. How could he be, when his father is a flaming trash can, the symbol of peace is both abusive and neglectful, and their teachers don't give a damn about them, because they're all heroes? How could he be surprised to hear that Sir Night-Eye, All Might's old partner, is just as awful and more openly hateful? How could he possibly be surprised when this entire year has done nothing but show Shoto why he should believe that Midori can never be left alone by the poor excuses for heroes that teach UA? But really, couldn't the world be nice for once? Couldn't Midori have a god-forsaken break, a chance to be himself without being put down by the adults who were supposed to be good and kind and fair? A chance to excel, to learn, to be happy? Why can't Midori have that for one day, without an adult coming by and ruining everything? Shoto hates it. He hates it as much as he hates his foul excuse of a father, and the worst part, Shoto thinks, is that he has no chance to intervene. Because Shoto Todoroki failed the provisional license exam, he was a few points too short of the cutoff line, just like Bakugo, and now he's reaping what he sowed. He was useless, as Midori was hurt, as he was ridiculed by his temporary mentor for not being good enough. Midoriya, not good enough. Clearly, Sir Night-Eye and the rest of the world expect a god because Midori is one step away from divinity, and Shoto refuses to hear anything else on the matter. They always expect more, and Midori is always trying to give it, even when he's running on fumes and can't offer anything else. He's always working. Training on the weekends with Aizawa, training after school with All Might. Midori even goes to the gym in the morning once curfew is over. He's running like he's running out of time, and Shoto just wishes he could stop. Stop for one day, just take a moment to relax, to decompress, to visit his mother and be happy, because right now Midori isn't happy. Uraraka and Kirishima have given him an explanation. They were all in the same raid together, taking down a Yakuza group along with Asui. Midori had been interning under Night-Eye with Tokuda, and he'd been sad. Apparently the man had dismissed him as unworthy of being a hero from the beginning, comparing him to Tokuda and the blonde's control over his quirk. Shoto doesn't know much else about the raid, except that Tokuda actually lost his quirk, and Night-Eye ended up dead, but, truth be told, Shoto only cares that Midori is upset. Because if a fake hero is gone, then so be it. Midori will be more than Night-Eye, All Might, and all of UA have ever been, because Midori is the truest hero that Shoto has ever met. Shoto only hopes that Midori knows this, and he hopes that Midori will be happy soon. Maybe he should make his friend Soba, or, was it Katsudan that Midori favors? He'll have to look up how to make it. Midori deserves the best, after all. Shoto walked into the raid with nothing but hopes to shut down a rising Yakuza group, and to save one little girl. He stumbled out to find his problem child on the ground, screaming in anguish as the little girl clung to him, power going haywire, as she had used it so long to keep him alive and able to fight her own personal monster. He erased her quirk immediately and watched as she slumped forwards, passing out on top of her hero. Midori's arms reached up to pat her head, and he stood up with a shaky smile plastered on his face. "I'm all right, Sensei," Midori said, as if he hadn't systematically destroyed himself over and over again in order to keep himself from being ripped out of existence. Shoto doesn't think that any of his students could have done such a thing, that any of the other 19 would be willing to break every bone in their body for one single girl and then do it over and over and over again. But that's what makes Midoriya. His endless drive, his willingness to help others no matter how much it hurts him. His ability to push himself to the very last breath if it means helping just one more person. It's honorable. It's the truest form of a hero to ever exist, and it's a level that Shoto can't honestly say he thinks many of his students will ever reach. It's also terrifying. It's horrifying, watching a student shatter himself, watching Midori tear himself to threads and sew himself together again with shaking hands. It paints an image that burns into Shoto's perpetually dry eyes, telling him things that he doesn't want to know but needs to. Midori is willing to go beyond his own limits. He has an endless drive and a hero complex to push it farther. He's ready to give up his life at a moment's notice for the sake of another. And he is skittish. He is scared and anxious and nervous. He flinches from loud noises and cries at the slightest hint of kindness, and would break his own arm to see his friend's joy. He gets excited that his childhood friend is caring for his well-being. He's over the moon at the idea of finally being someone's favorite person. There's something there, something Shoto needs to see, and he finally sees it, in the middle of the night, the very same day of the raid. Shota Aizawa, one of those pesky robots that Nezu has, is running through the dorms, and it cheers out in its stupid, cheerful voice. "A student is outside past curfew. Shota Aizawa. A student of 1A is sitting on the roof. Shota Aizawa." "I heard you the first time," Shota mutters, and just like that the robot quiets down, leaving Shota alone, the only noise coming from his footsteps, treading down the halls and reaching the elevator. He clicks the button for the highest floor, just a floor below the stairs to the roof. His thoughts run through his head as the metal box slowly ascends. Who could possibly be on the roof? He wonders. He's already caught Tokiyami on the roof once, but the boy had promised to get his nightly void calling out before curfew from then on, although Dark Shadow has still been roaming the halls past curfew a few times. Shota is tempted to give the quirk detention, but that brings up a whole debate on whether or not he has the right to give a quirk detention, and that's a problem that a future, hopefully less tired Shota can deal with. Another student he's caught on the roof had been Uraraka. She'd been practicing her quirk, using it to climb up the entire building. However, considering that she just got back from the raid, Shota doubts that the brunette is energetic enough to scale a dorm at this time. The only other kid Shota could guess would be Sero, who used his tape in a similar way to Shota and his capture weapon, pulling himself up onto the roof, but Sero is one of the more somewhat calm kids in his class, and knows better than to blatantly break such a rule as curfew, so when Shota finally reaches the door of the roof, he doesn't know who to expect. But he wasn't expecting Midoriya, and he isn't sure how to feel when he sees the green-haired student so close to the edge, but he doesn't quite like it. "Midoriya," Shota says, and Midoriya doesn't really react, and isn't that unsettling. "Kid?" Shota starts again, walking closer to his problem child, hand reaching up to his capture weapon just in case, and the boy tilts his head in acknowledgement. He offers nothing else, but he doesn't tense, he doesn't flinch, and he doesn't move away. Shota will take what he can get, and when he sees that Midori makes no attempts to go anywhere, he lets his hand drop back down, leaning against the railing beside the green-haired boy. Shota figures it's about the raid. Sir Nighthawk had died, after all, and that's not something that one can walk off lightly. Shota knows Midoriya, knows how his student cares so much for every person he meets. If he could, Shota has no doubts that Midoriya would choose to reform villains instead of fighting them. His heart is just that big. So really, it's not surprising that Midoriya is up here, staring blankly at the sky like he's lost in his own head. But the contents of Midoriya's thoughts are, The words are soft, and Shota almost doesn't hear them. He doesn't react much, purposely keeping his eyes straight ahead, only seeing the kid in the corner of his vision. Midoriya tries again after a moment of silence. When I was younger, I used to think that I'd be just like All Might. Somehow. Some way. Midoriya's hand grips onto the railing, no longer staying flat on the metal. I had big dreams back then. Still do, I think. Everyone says so, at least. To save everyone with a smile, just like him. To be strong and powerful enough to soothe people with my presence alone. It's a big goal, but it was mine. Isn't it still? Shota wants to ask, but instead he just nods along. One person can change a lot. Everyone always said I couldn't change much. I couldn't do anything significant. I'm just one person, after all. 1 out of billions. I don't even make up 1% of 1%. It's just me. Midoriya has never had an ego. Shota knows this, but he's never heard the kid talk like this. Kid. Shota tries, but Midoriya cuts him off, almost like he isn't even hearing him. But other people aren't like me. The word is spat out with disgust. I mean, look at them. All Might could lower crime rates in cities with his presence alone. Stain's words led to a rise in Hosu criminals. Nezu changed how people see quirked animals more feared than afraid. And you'll change the world too, kid. Shota says because it's true. It's just a fact, plain and simple. The sky is blue, All Might is barely competent as a teacher, and Midoriya is going to change the world. Mirio could do better. Midoriya murmurs, and Shota blinks in surprise. Midoriya? Shota starts, finally turning his head to look at Midoriya fully. What's this about? Midoriya turns his head too, eyes lacking their normal shine as he asks, If I said I could give Togata-senpai a quirk, would you say that I should? A quirk. Not his own? Shota asks slowly, and Midoriya makes a dismissive noise. No, not Togata's. A strength enhancement quirk, of sorts. Midoriya turns his head back slightly, eyes more focused on the sky than his teacher. Shota looks at his student with a strength-enhancing quirk, and he frowns. You know that there is a highly likely chance that Eri will one day be able to give Togata his quirk back, right? Shota asks because he has to be sure, because this conversation is odd and nonsensical in a way that makes his hair stand on end, and he wants Midoriya to accept this. So, of course, Midoriya does not. But we don't know how long it'll take for her to confidently use her powers, and we can't rush her. That'd hurt her. But that means he's quirkless. Midoriya says it like Togata's been cursed, like it's an illness, something that is nothing but a problem. If anyone else spoke like that, Shota would assume they're quirkist right off the bat. But Midoriya isn't. Midoriya is the kid who thinks everyone can be a hero no matter the quirk. Surely the kid would be the same for someone lacking one. Togata can still go on without a quirk for a few years. Shota tries, but Midoriya just laughs. It's not a pretty sound, bursting out of him and slightly hysterical. Sensei, he's quirkless, Midoriya says again, his eyes finally wide and seeing, but still not right. This isn't temporary. This is a permanent issue. Unless Eri can fix it, he's quirkless, Sensei. Midoriya grips the railing tighter and sourly states, And everyone knows you can't be a hero if you're quirkless. Shota raises an eyebrow, leans his weight onto the railing, and asks, And how do you know that? The words come bursting out, like they've been waiting to for ages, slipping through Midoriya's lips like a well-guarded secret springing from its hiding spot. Because All Might told me so when I asked him on the roof. There's so much Shota could ask about that statement, so damn much, but all he gets out is a monotone, What? Luckily, it seems Midoriya has no problem speaking his mind, everything coming out like he just can't stop. I'm quirkless, Midoriya breathes out and then flinches. Or I was quirkless, and no one believed. My mom apologized, my teachers told me to find a different career, my peers. Midoriya cuts off, hands turning white from his own grip, and Shota wonders if the railing will be bent when Midoriya finally releases it. I met All Might, one day, 10 months before the exam. He saved me from a villain. I clung to him when he tried to disappear. I had to ask him. Had to know. I asked him. He He said no. Anger pulls in Shota's stomach. The thought of All Might crushing the boy's dreams, leaving a sour taste in his mouth. He moves to speak, wanting to tell Midoriya that All Might was foolish to do so, but the boy isn't done. He isn't done. The villain escaped. He had Kachan. I moved without thinking, just like always. I got some air, some time. All Might liked that. Said I could be a hero with his quirk. With his quirk. What? His quirk? Shota asks, and Midoriya smiles wryly. All Might said I'm supposed to keep it a secret, but I trust you. You're good. You're trustworthy. Those words warm Shota's heart, but the rest of him is burning with anger. His quirk isn't his own. It was passed down by his predecessor, who got it from hers, and so on, and I'm the ninth. The ninth. Yeah. Taking a deep breath, Midoriya looks back up at him. I couldn't have done anything without it. I wasn't enough on my own, but I'm not enough. Not with the quirk, not with the extra training, not with anything. You want to give it to Togeda, Shota says bluntly, even though you think it'll end your hero career before it begins. I know it'll end my career, Midoriya corrects, and his eyes are teary, but he's still talking. But I'm running on someone else's time. This quirk isn't mine. It's just borrowed. Sir always said Togeda-senpai was a better choice, and he is, so I should stop being selfish and... No. Midoriya goes silent, then tentatively, No? No. Shota repeats with a nod. Kid, Togeda isn't your responsibility. What happened to him is a setback, and it's awful, to be separated from a part of himself, but it's not the end. He's strong, he's capable. He's gone far, without a strength quirk. He doesn't need one now. And speaking of, it may not have been yours from the beginning, but it's yours now. It's yours, not Togeda's. Not for Sir to choose who it belongs to. But Togeda-senpai could have saved Sir. Or he could have been hit by that bullet anyways, Shota counters. Kid, the fact is, we don't know what could have been, but I do know what will be. Shota reaches out, places a hand on Midoriya's shoulder because the kid looks like he needs that contact to ground him. Only then does he continue. Togeda's going to be a fine hero. You're going to keep training. And you're going to grow stronger. You'll save more people, and you'll change the world. You're going to go far, Midoriya, and I look forward to seeing you at the top. You believe that? Midoriya asks, tears building up, threatening to well over. I know that, Shota assures. Because you, Midoriya, never needed a goddamn quirk to be a hero. The tears spill as Midoriya lets go of the railing, lurching forward and wrapping his arms around Shota's waist. Shota lets the kid hug him, gently wrapping his own arms around the boy as he lets out his tears. The conversation rests heavy on him, explaining things that never lined up before, making him wonder if there's anything else to this that he's just not seeing. But for the moment, Shota just focuses on the kid crying in his arms, on soothing the boy before sending him back to his room to get some much-needed sleep. And when the morning comes, and Shota finds Midoriya bright-eyed and bushy-haired in his classroom, he almost wonders if the night before was just a sad dream. But the bent railing says otherwise, and Shota knows that things have changed. For once, it seems to be for the better. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 16 of Todoroki's Conspiracy. Chapter 17 will be next, and as always, thank you so much for listening.